Welcome to episode 236 of The Night Shift. Mike Stubbs and Kyle Grimard, season underway, storylines happening. The National Hockey League is about to drop the puck on not a preseason game. Kyle, I don't think I remember a year when more people have been more down on the NHL preseason. The NFL, they take their hits for the preseason because nobody plays anymore. And the NHL preseason, people have been watching it as if they are diagnosing what hockey looks like. And it's just the preseason, but it's almost over and done with. We're going to recap where a lot of London Knights who were at NHL camps are either now or which ones are still at National Hockey League camps. As of this recording, Sam Dickinson is one of 11 San Jose Sharks who are on the roster as defensemen. So remember, they carry about 8. They're at 11. And we'll see what happens over the next few days and whether or not he starts the season with the San Jose Sharks. Same storyline with Easton Cowan. We'll dig into that. We'll dig into some league news. We're going to preview Flint. We're going to preview Guelph. Joining us will be Brian Gardner, who's the voice of the Flint Firebirds. And can't wait, Dylan Baker is going to join us. He is the brand new voice of the Guelph Storm, and he is on a path to stardom. So you may know Dylan already because Dylan, when he was in high school, was the voice of the Camoka Kings. He was the voice of the London Majors, and he was a guy that was putting in the reps when he was 15, 16, and all he's done is gotten better and better. And so he's still in university, but is finding time, even with a university schedule, to do the Guelph Storm games and is having some fun so far. We've got to ask him about his first time in Barrie because it was the first game of the season. And sometimes things are a little topsy-turvy, and for whatever reason, the internet was not working where it was supposed to be working. And so Dylan couldn't broadcast from where you normally broadcast from. I don't even know where he wound up, but this is the sign of a guy who is going places. We will be seeing him on national networks one day. He got the game done, Kyle. He found a place. I think he may have been on or near the Barrie Colts bench, but he got it done.
I don't know if he called into the studio and they relayed that call to the board. However, it worked, but nevertheless, no, you've got to know Dylan a little bit. I've known him as well, doing stuff with the London Majors, and you could just tell you met him for the first time and you go, this man is built to be in broadcasting as a main voice on the main stage, and couldn't be happier for him. It's such an early start to his career, but he's going to take off and do some wonderful things. So yeah, big congratulations to Dylan from us.
Let's look back. We're 4 games in, and I always like to look back at something that my late father-in-law put me onto, and that was some writings from Bart Giamatti. And you don't necessarily know Bart Giamatti because he wasn't maybe front and center in Major League Baseball, but he wrote a lot about Major League Baseball and did some time in the front office of Major League Baseball. And he was the guy who would compare baseball to life. And he would use it as this metaphor. And one of the things that he stressed was how big picture baseball taught you to be. And I really think you can do this with all sports. You can take what we see and you can learn so much from it. I mean, if you are running a company, you have a depth chart. You have that, and you're figuring out, okay, this person is here right now, and then I hope that they can move up to a manager position here, and maybe one day they can be the general manager while I retire early. All of those things. You have a depth chart. You're looking to bring in rookies. You're looking to teach them up. That's the way life works, and you can really take that sports analogy and run with it. And so if we look right now, I think we really do need to stress big picture. So don't look at the first 4 games that the London Knights are playing and say, wait a minute, they don't have a win yet. Look at this big picture. And here's what I'll throw out there. And I'm just going to throw out some facts because we talked about this last year on the podcast. We talked about it the year before on the podcast. I apologize for my screen moving. Do you want to see why it was moving? I'll show you. This animal decided to walk through exactly where everything was set up. This is
Why
Pip.
not?
Pip only has 3 legs, but gets around quite well. So that's Pip. Now,
Oh, amazing.
when we look at the last couple of years, here's what we were talking about last year. We were talking about the fact that the Knights were off to a 1-3 start. And then if we go back even to 22-23, I want to talk about the Knights coming off a first round upset loss to the Kitchener Rangers the year before, and then starting the year 0-3-1. They actually had fewer points. That team went on and played in the OHL Championship Series. Now, I mean, things fell into place for that team. Does that happen every year? No, but 2 weeks feels like a lot, but we live this world of immediacy, and I really think we need to take a second, Kyle, and look big picture. So if you're a Knights fan and you're feeling uptight, let's do this. Whew. Have faith in that coaching staff and the players. Don't worry right now because this team, even if they have to do something, they're going to do it. But that teaching up is happening right now.
You nailed it. The fact that last year's team, which was highly regarded as being a team that everyone knew was going to be a good team and that they were going to go on a run and potentially make a deep run in the playoffs, an OHL championship, and maybe a Memorial Cup. They did all those things. You alluded to it. They were 1-3 last year. By then, early December, after starting 1-3, they were 23-4. So it took some time. Now, I'm not saying that this team, Mike, and obviously you're not as well, this team is going to then replicate that because let's be honest, a lot of players have moved on from the organization from last year's team. We're going to break all those players down and where they are and where they're going to be currently going. But a lot of guys are still coming back from camp. We just had a game or two of Sam O'Reilly and Jared Woolley and Henry Brustevich and Medvedev. They're all getting reacclimated with the OHL and the level and their role. It will take a game or two, and then they'll kind of figure it out. The young guys are going to understand the system that Mark and Dale and Dylan Hunter and everyone all put into place. And then you're starting to see the profits and what becomes positive of the system. It takes time. I think this is like an annual conversation that we have, Mike, with everybody about everyone just take a breath. Everyone figures it out in the first few games, and then after a while, you start getting going. Teams start to separate. Not saying this team's going to be last year's team. I don't think anyone's saying that. Or the last 2 years, because those teams have had those expectations of wanting to win an OHL championship and a Mem Cup. It's often very difficult, Mike, when you go to 3 straight OHL finals, win 2 of them, and win a Memorial Cup on top of it. You're going to replicate that with the amount of players that are no longer a part of the team. So you're right. Deep breaths. Team will figure it out. There's a reason this coaching staff is as good as it is and has been there as long as they have. They will eventually work some things out and get to a level that they want to be at.
One of the things we're seeing is maybe a lack of confidence in scoring among forwards, and that will come. I mean, you have guys who are now either moving up the depth chart, and so instead of facing the third pairing on the other team, or even sometimes the second pairing, you're up against the first pairing. And the other aspect, and you mentioned it, guys returning from camps. I asked Rick Stedman about this, Knights assistant coach, and I said, some of the things that guys have to get used to coming back, what are those? And one of the things he said was, well, the first thing you've got to get over is you didn't make a team. And you might think, well, you're not necessarily going into a camp at 18 or 19 years of age expecting to make a team. And then you think, no, wait a minute, that's why you're here. You got to this level of sport because you have the attitude that whatever team you are trying out for, you're going to make that team. Otherwise, why are you there? And so you've got to get over that. You got to adapt to the timing being a little bit different, and you do. And if we break down the game against the Brampton Steelheads, it was tight. It was played along the wall, and credit James Richmond and his players for winning board battles and finding the back of the net in opportunistic times. They had, a play where a player was able to get behind the Knights D, goes in on a breakaway. There were little things, and those are those little things that always stand out that you're kind of pointing to, Kyle, at this time of year that get ironed out. I look at the next night in Erie. There were 2 plays. Erie, opportunistic off turnovers. If this game was played in February, I think the Knights win it 3-1. But instead it goes to overtime and they lose it 4-3. There was a pass back to a defender, and because of pressure on the forecheck, the puck goes off the defender's stick. It's picked up. It's in the net. And that's how quick it can happen depending on who we're talking about. In that case, it was Gabe Frasca, very opportunistic, older player, and he did what he was supposed to do for the Erie Otters. He scored. And then there was another play where a defender maybe next time wouldn't carry a puck out of the zone or attempt to carry the puck out of the zone and ended up with a broken stick. So maybe as that player was carrying, stick broke, and it winds up becoming a quick pass in front, and McLean Agrette scores his first OHL goal. He's a guy, he's a smallish forward. Erie wants him to score a lot of goals, but those plays don't typically happen. And I think that's what you've got to look at, that this game is played a little later. You iron that kind of stuff out. So the Knights will go up against Flint and they will go up against Guelph. Couple of good conference tests, and we see where things go after an entire week of practice. The one thing I think the Knights have going for them is their schedule to really get going, where you don't have midweek games that are breaking up the flow. And because now you've got all those players back from camp, with the exception of perhaps Sam Dickinson, but I don't think anybody's counting on him coming back. It's kind of like the Windsor Spitfires. Will Ilya Protas come back? Don't know. Maybe. There's a chance, but it's not a guarantee. And so you don't really even pencil him into the lineup. Maybe he's a surprise at some point. Maybe Sam Dickinson winds up being the same thing. But what you have is you have now a week of practice and then 2 games. And then you have another full week of practice and then 2 games. You're not having to go to Kitchener on a Tuesday. You're not having to go to Niagara on a Thursday, which kind of upsets that rhythm. The first 4 weeks, and I don't think I've ever seen this, have been practice for the week, game Friday, Saturday. Practice for the week, game Friday, Saturday. And it goes like that. And so I really think that works into the favor of all of the teaching that has to go on right now. And you give this coaching staff an opportunity to teach, you're going to give those players an opportunity to learn, and we'll see what happens after that. But take it as an interesting start. Take it as a pretty normal start. You can go all the way back to 2005. The Knights are under 500 collectively in the first 4 games of the season. That's just the way that it starts. And if we want to talk about the Knights being in a position where Owen Sound is right now, where they're unbeaten, or Windsor, who is unbeaten, or Ottawa, who is unbeaten, if you look, the Knights in their first 4 games have been 4-0 twice since 2005. So 2005, they were unbeaten because there was no NHL training camp. That team was the team of the century. They went on and they went 29-0-2. So since then, there have been 2 times when they have gone completely perfect in the first 4 games. One of those times was the year that they lost in the first round of the Kitchener Rangers, 2021-22. The other time was 2011-2012, when they were this young upstart. Your fourth line is made up of Josh Anderson, Bo Horvat, and Chris Tierney, who would go on to star in the National Hockey League for many years. Max Domi was a third liner. That team, at a very young age, made it all the way to the Memorial Cup final. That team ended up going 4-0. So, I mean, throw the numbers around where you want them to. We'll see where everything lands in a couple of months. Big picture, Bart Giamatti.
I like it, Mike, and it's a great point, because you look back at those teams and you see those players, how are they ever in the fourth lines? Because, well, they were young, they were inexperienced, and they were just learning. And there's a lot of turnover in players from that team. So much so, Mike, to the point where you actually went through some of the numbers. The amount of offense that this team has to replace up front alone is well over 50% from the players that were a part of this team last year and contributing a significant amount. I think the number you have up here is about 56% of the team's offense last year up front. They are trying to find who's going to step up and take some of those numbers, because that's not there anymore.
Yeah, and that's part of this part of the year, guys playing against those better defensive pairings, and they will come up and figure that out. And here's just how wild and crazy the first 4 games of a season are. You can look back and say, who is leading the OHL in scoring even after the first month? And very often, it's not the player that winds up leading the OHL in scoring at the end of the season. But here's how topsy-turvy and wild everything is. 56.3% of the offense is missing for the London Knights last year. Let's look at Owen Sound, who is 4-0, and let's look at Windsor, who is 5-0. And Windsor's given up 4 goals. Windsor's given up 4 goals in 5 games. They are 5-0. They're a wagon, and I think we knew they were a wagon coming into this year, and they still have to get potentially Liam Greentree, and who knows, outside shot of Ilya Protas. Maybe he gets the Kasper Halttunen treatment where you know a team is good, you know they could go on a run. Do the Washington Capitals look and say, that's not a bad spot for this guy to be? He was a man among boys last year. I don't know, is there a thing that's a Yeti
Yeah,
among boys? And what's next? What's after man among boys? There's got to be something.
a
Bigfoot,
gorilla bear among boys.
gorilla bear. I like that. Gorilla bear among boys. That's what he would be. So the Knights are missing 56.3% of their offense from last year. Owen Sound is only missing 34%. So you would say, yeah, that makes sense. Guys taking a step. Yeah, they would be doing what they're doing now. They beat the Kitchener Rangers. They've looked outstanding. Then you look and you say, but wait a minute. Windsor is missing 72% of their offense from last year, and they're still 5-0. So it just shows to the potential that the Windsor Spitfires have. They've kind of been building for this year, and you could even argue next year as well. But that's how topsy-turvy everything is. You'd love to be able to say, well, it's just because this, and then you try and read the stats and you go, yeah, but there's an outlier, and there's an outlier, and there's an outlier. It's too small a sample size. And that's exactly how the Knights front office and how the Knights coaching staff would be looking at any of this. It's a small sample size. Give us 10, 15, 20, 30 games. Then you make the decision as to how things are going. One thing we haven't done yet is highlight a couple of things. One being Jared Woolley. Jared Woolley comes back into the lineup, scores a goal against Brampton. The next night against Erie, he gets two. Jared Woolley, 3 goals in 2 games. And anybody who's watched him, and again, this goes to how loaded the Knights roster has been. Anybody who has watched him in practice or when he's had those tiny offensive opportunities in games knows he's got a really hard shot and he's got a really accurate shot. And it's a really hard wrist shot. Jared Woolley, sure, can wind up. Everybody can wind up, and he's got a big frame. He's going to put a lot of pounds and a lot of oomph behind a slap shot, but he's got this really hard, really quick wrist shot. And I think that is something that we're going to see more of this year. So you lose Kasper Halttunen and you potentially lose Sam Dickinson, who were 2 very good shots from a long way out. Well, Henry Brustevich can provide that, as we've talked about. And Jared Woolley, he's been a sniper so far.
Jared Woolley, the sniper. It's what we called him, right? That's what we've said here on this show. Mike, and one of the words, especially as a goalie, that a lot of guys say when a player has a shot like that is heavy. Heavy is the word that always gets utilized. And the reason behind it is hard shot's hard shot, but heavy shots are one of those things where even if you get a piece of it as a goaltender, because it's got so much weight behind it, it's a heavy shot. Even if you find a way to get a piece of it, it still fights its way through you and ends up in the back of the net. And I think that's what Jared Woolley's shot is. A lot of guys are like quick shots, and some guys have hard shots. Heavy is just like a different feel, and only certain guys have that heavy shot. Kasper Halttunen had a heavy shot. You could get a big piece of it, and it still finds a way to trickle its way into the net, regardless of how much you feel you got in the way. So that's where I feel Jared Woolley is. And again, it's a confidence thing, right? You're coming back to the team. You're a year older. You're playing guys that maybe are a bit younger or the same age as you were. So that's a confidence builder. And I'm assuming too, you mentioned, Mike, that, some of the guys go to training camp at the National Hockey League level and they come back and they're a little bit discouraged because since they were 4 or 5 years old, every team they've tried out for, they've made. So this is maybe one of the first, if not few times that they have come back from a camp not making a team. Some guys take it a certain way. Some guys use it as motivation. I feel like Jared's a guy who uses it, maybe not as motivation, but just kind of as a learning curve to be like, okay, I learned a lot. I'm going to try to then orchestrate and utilize some of it here, see how it works. And Jared, and you could just see, they probably told him, be a little bit more offensive. Take the shot more. You don't always have to defer. And what we've seen so far is 3 goals in 2 games to start.
Well, we'll see what happens as we hit the next 2. We've got Brian Gardner and Dylan Baker coming up. We can hear from a couple of those guys through the podcast who are back from those camps. And we'll start that with London Knights forward Noah Reed, who attended camp with the Anaheim Ducks. Take us, first of all, through what you think about walking around just California.
Yeah, it was unbelievable, I've never really been anywhere like there, anywhere close to there, but getting there, seeing all the weather, it was really nice. But a lot of fun though. Got to see the city a bit, so it was good.
So it's not just rink and hotel all the time.
No, yeah, we were lucky enough to get some time off there. So somebody's and we go to the beach or go to dinner sometimes. So yeah, we had some fun while playing hockey.
What beach is closest?
We went to Newport Beach a lot. They got some good restaurants on the beach there, so we went there quite a bit.
Any surfing?
No, I didn't get on the water. I wish I did, but I'll have to at some point.
Do you know if any of the guys surf, or are they allowed to do that?
I didn't see anyone surfing while at camp, but I'm sure some of them have before we play down there.
So take us through camp. You go through the rookie tournament. On the other side, you got a lot of familiar faces.
Yeah.
What was it like at the rookie tournament that you played?
Yeah, it was pretty cool playing against Holt, Sticky, and Woolley and Rustevich. It was a lot of fun, but just really fast-paced game. Learned a lot playing with those guys, and was able to pick up some things that I can hope to bring back here to London.
What do you think you notice just being up playing with pros?
I think just kind of the everyday habits they have. All the recovery they do after the practice or games, but on the ice, I think just realizing how much faster it is, how much bigger it is, and kind of what it takes. You have to get bigger. You have to be big to play at that level. So I think just realizing that.
So the care of your body, number one,
yeah,
2,
taking
3.
care of your body. Yeah, getting the sleep that you need. I think it's so important, but I think you really realize that when you go down there.
Now you come back here. What are the goals this year? What do you want to do?
Yeah, I think the goal in everyone's head is to win another Memorial Cup. So, we're gonna work hard towards that goal, and I'm really excited for the year. I think we have a great group of guys. Obviously we have a lot of work ahead, but I love our team, and I think we're gonna have a great year.
After being in California, still okay if it snows around here?
Yeah, I miss the snow a little bit, so it's good to see some coming in the winter.
London Knights forward Noah Reid back from Anaheim, and the ability to check out California a little bit, a place that he might spend a whole lot of time in his life. And we're going to hear from Alexei Medvedev later on, but let's get you caught up on where some former Knights are in terms of the National Hockey League and the American Hockey League right now. So we mentioned Sam Dickinson, one of 11 defensemen left in the National Hockey League San Jose Sharks roster. They've got 41 players total, so they still have some cuts to make. Easton Cowan, Kyle, the question around Toronto is, will the Blue Jays win game 1 against either Boston or the Yankees right now? But if you want to talk Leafs, Easton Cowan's name pops up. Does he make it ahead of, say, David Kampf, or does he make it again ahead of Calle Yarncroke? Those are questions. Nick Robertson, is he ahead of him on the depth chart? The Maple Leafs, according to people who cover the Maple Leafs very closely, put out their practice lines, and they were as NHL ready as they had seen so far in camp, and Easton Cowan was on the 4th line. So he was ahead of David Kampf. He was ahead of Calle Yarncroke. So does that stay that way? There are 2 preseason games remaining as we record this. The Leafs will play a home-and-home with the Detroit Red Wings. Easton Cowan, Kyle, has been doing those little things, getting pucks deep, not trying to do too much. How key can that be when he's a guy in the situation that he's in, where maybe you're not looking at him right now for top 2 lines, but can he play a 3rd or 4th line role?
Well, and that's been what everyone's asked and found out about Easton Cowan is normally when you draft guys, in the first round, a lot of times they're a very top heavy individual. They're very skilled in terms of passing, shooting the puck, but Easton has really developed his game. And we've had a chance to watch it, Mike, over how many years now here in London, where he can play a multitude of roles. He can get in on the forecheck. He's played massive penalty kill for the London Knights, for Team Canada, the World Junior Hockey Championships. He's very good on the forecheck. He's a pest in the corners. He's impossible. He's got a motor on him that just doesn't stop. How many times last year, Mike, on this show, did we talk about the effort level of Easton Cowan, whether it was shorthanded, whether it's on a back check, or something where it's away from the puck and not have to do with a shot or pass? And I think that Toronto is starting to see that a little bit and go, okay, you can do this. You can play with everybody, so we can put you on the 4th line, still be a productive player. And then if, God forbid, maybe someone gets hurt or you've proven yourself to go play up in the lineup, you also have that ability to finish and play with higher end players. And I think they really like that about him. So you're right. They have a lot of players right now who are kind of up in the air of what they're going to have to do. But I think that he's shown, one, I think he plays the system that Craig Berube likes to play, but also he's just shown he's very valuable wherever you put him in the lineup. So they're going to give him a shot and see what happens.
And I love that. If he can play, because you're going to run into injuries, if he can play down in the lineup, he's also a guy who has that skill. And you said it perfectly. If you have somebody in your lineup that can, sure, play an energy role right now, go out and make sure you're not scored on, whatever it is that you want your fourth line to do. And then if there's an injury, hey, step up, play on the second line because you have that offensive instinct as well. So those are the two ex-Knights who are right now in the National Hockey League, and Sam Dickinson will put him in that category. And then he's that surprise if he comes back. I don't think anybody's shocked if he does not. Oliver Bonk is still in the National Hockey League right now. And you might say, well, 20 years old, yeah, he's a great defenseman. He is injured, so they haven't decided in Philadelphia what they would want to do with Oliver Bonk. He's listed as day-to-day with an upper body injury, and it's had him out for a little while. Didn't play much so far in the preseason. Denver Barkey is now with the Philadelphia Phantoms, so he got a nice long look, got to play in the preseason, and now we'll go to the American Hockey League. Cam Allen in the American Hockey League with the Hershey Bears. Kasper Halttunen was just sent down when the Sharks made their moves to reduce their roster to 41. The Sharks basically had a preseason game where it was like, all right, here's everybody who will probably be headed to the San Jose Barracuda. Let's have one last look at them. They did that. Then they made their moves, and now they'll focus on this weekend. They've got a couple of games left to figure out their final roster. And then Jesse Nurmi is with the Bridgeport Islanders, and that's the team that may wind up in Hamilton very soon. Jacob Julian's with the Manitoba Moose. Landon Sim is with the Toronto Marlies. And am I missing anybody? I don't think so. Blake Montgomery attended development camp with the Ottawa Senators. I didn't see him on their prospect camp roster for this year, which was odd, but we know how much he has dreamed of playing college hockey. He even said it coming to London last year. My dream is to play NCAA. He wins a Memorial Cup with the London Knights and is a key contributor. And now he's living the university experience. And Kyle, hang on. I've got the Wisconsin Badgers schedule. They will open this weekend against Lindenwood. Everybody who is watching or listening to the podcast right now, hand in the air if you knew Lindenwood was an NCAA school.
Not
Kyle,
at that
I don't
level.
see your hand in the air.
No,
My
you
hand's
don't.
not in the air.
No, you don't either. So
Didn't know, but hey, good luck to the Wisconsin Badgers against Lindenwood. And maybe Lindenwood starts to look around at Major Junior going, hey, guys, you got to come to Lindenwood. We take on the Wisconsin Badgers. We're going to make, I believe, looking at their logo, it is the Lions, Lindenwood Lions. Okay. I believe that we're going to make them a powerhouse. You never know.
But I mean, good for Blake. Good program. Wisconsin, it's a big school. Badgers are a team that's known throughout the NCAA world. That'll be a great experience for him, however long he goes there. We talked about it, Mike, how much he wanted to be in the NCAA and play college hockey. Now he gets that chance on a pretty big program. So huge shout out, kudos to Blake Montgomery.
If we look around the league, we've mentioned a couple of the key stories so far. Owen Sound being unbeaten, beating Kitchener. That was a big win for them. And coming into the season, what was everybody saying? If some of these players take a step, this could be a really good team. They've got a three-headed monster in goal. Goaltending's not an issue. Their forwards, if people take a step, and so far, they're stepping. Attacker #1 in power play in the OHL and #1 in penalty kill. That will help you get off to a good start. They've yet to allow they've yet to allow a goal on their penalty kill. So they're at 100%. Windsor, they've allowed 4 goals in 5 games. They're 5-0. Ottawa is unbeaten. Defensively, they've been very good. They have 2 very good goaltenders. And that takes us to what the London Knights have coming up next. They will take on the Flint Firebirds. And that game will happen on Friday, October the 3rd. For tickets or ticket information, you can visit londonnights.com. And we have a chance now to hear from the voice of the Flint Firebirds, Brian Gardner.
Yeah, I'd say a little bit disappointed with the weekend effort for the last 2 games that lead up into our tilt here on Friday. But so I know that there's definitely optimism down in the coach's room and in that locker room. They feel like they are a good team and just kind of had a bad weekend. But yeah, that season opening win in Saginaw, the come from behind 6-5 in overtime, that really had great vibes to start things off. And then as we roll into the next weekend, yeah, it wasn't exactly what they were hoping for, but I can tell you they worked him hard in practice when they got back on the ice on Tuesday. And hopefully, from a Firebird side of things, that they look a little bit more like they did in that win on Saturday on the 20th against Saginaw, as opposed to in the home opener and then the loss in Sarnia.
Brian, we have seen the Firebirds have players who are going to grow going back a couple of years, whether it is Jimmy Lombardi or Jeremy Martin. Nathan Aspinall is a guy who has come on. How key are they to the success this year?
I think this team's going to go as far as those guys take them. The returners, the faces that fans in the Western Conference, Firebirds fans, and really people around the OHL have kind of come to learn over these last couple of years. You mentioned Lombardi, and that's somebody who, going back to his first year as a 16-year-old, this coaching staff has just been so high on, talking about him as, a future star. And this feels like the year for him to really kind of bust out. I know that when I spoke with the OHL preseason, when they were doing those, 5 questions with media members who cover the team, I was asked for who I thought the team MVP was going to be. And another name you just threw out, Nathan Aspinall, was my pick on that because as you talk about growing, I mean, physically also with him, the kid's 6'7", and he, is filling out more and more as you do when you kind of go from a gangly teenager to a young man drafted into the NHL. And he'll be making his season debut on Friday in London. And, having been the last one returned from his NHL camp with the New York Rangers. And I, in particular, am really excited to see what he looks like.
He can move, and he just keeps getting bigger. So wild. We're talking right now with Brian Gardner, voice of the Flint Firebirds. How about goaltending? Where does goaltending sit right now in Flint?
So Mason Vicari is going to be the go-to guy as it stands right now. Came over in the trade from the Kingston Frontenacs this offseason. That kind of signaled that they were not expecting to retain the services of Nathan Day for his overage season, as he signed with the Edmonton Oilers, and he had a stint in the ECHL in the postseason even after the Firebird season finished up, and he looked fantastic with the Fort Wayne Comets. And question with him is pretty much, are they going to play him in the AHL in Bakersfield or in the ECHL in Fort Wayne? So that being said, leaves a bit of a void, and Vicari's kind of the guy that they're expecting to fill that void. We did get our first look at Mason Corville as well, who is on the roster as the backup goaltender right now. He was a third-round pick in this past year's OHL priority selection, and he got his first action in Sarnia this past Sunday, and 7 goals on 30 shots. He didn't look incredible, but they're really high on him, and I see why. I mean, he's shown flashes. He was great in his preseason action. Kid's only 15 years old. He's an October '09 birthday, and I mean, I had a crazy realization because '09 is the year that I graduated high school and started college, and I literally have a drawstring gym bag from my freshman orientation at Old Dominion University that is older than Mason Corville, who was the starting goaltender for a game that I called on Sunday afternoon, and I don't think I've ever felt older.
Yeah, I mean, if you hang around long enough, soon you're going to see the son of someone who played on the team walk through the door, and you think, yeah, I've hit that. I mean, I know somebody who's told stories of seeing a grandson walk through a team. So that can happen. Hey, it just means longevity, right? It's actually a positive. Brian, to close out, any 1 or 2 names that have popped to you that Knights fans wouldn't already know from last year on Flint?
So I think that the defensive core for the Firebirds looks very different. You lost a couple of overagers in the likes of Blake Smith and Nolan Collins, and then Matthew Mania moved on to the University of Michigan instead of playing his overage year in the OHL. And so some of the names that are replacing them are, there's a few guys who came over by way of the rule change with the NCAA who had been playing maybe in the BCHL or the USHL. One of them is Dryden Allen, who's getting a lot of minutes on the back end. He's a Michigan State commit. He had been playing in the USHL. He's somebody who looks really steady, really solid back there. Left the first game of the season injured, but what has been on the ice. I don't know if he's playing this weekend. Luca Graziano, he's a Harvard commit, really skilled defenseman. And then there's Daryl Zuljanski, who was their CHL import draft #5 overall selection. The Birds actually traded up to go have the right to select him. He's a Latvian-born defenseman, has major junior experience. He is a drafted prospect of the Anaheim Ducks, who the Firebird staff has a good relationship with. And he's someone who it seems like is still kind of trying to find his way in the system, but you really, really see the talent with him. And I think that on the blue line is really where you're going to see some names where you're kind of like, huh, that guy looks pretty good. Where did he come from? And then if you pull up, you Google his name, you see, oh, okay. So he come over because now he can play here and still have the option to go to college or import draft or what have you. And so we're still kind of trying to learn this roster. I mean, the Birds have only played 3 games at this point, so it's there's still some things to kind of figure out exactly who's going to slot in where. One other forward that I would call out, Chase Hull. He's got 3 goals already. He's another one who he had been in the BCHL, 2 goals, including the game winner on opening night in Saginaw. He potted a late one in the loss in Sarnia, and he's somebody who they seem to be pretty high on. So those would be the names that I'd call out as if you see those. And Mike, if you find yourself saying their name quite a bit on Friday night, then those are the reasons why.
Look forward to it. Brian, we will see you on Friday. Brian Gardner and the Flint Firebirds in London at Canada Life Place on a Friday night. And these are 2 teams right now that are battling for spots early on, trying to get themselves off to good starts. Flint went into Sarnia and kind of fell victim to a Sarnia Sting team that turned on the offense this past weekend. So good on the Sarnia Sting. They're one of those teams, I think, that as maybe a quiet team under the radar, things just weren't going all that well when they ended the preseason, but now things are going okay. But Sarnia racked up 7 on Flint on Sunday. Flint has been shut out by Niagara, and they've been in overtime against Saginaw and beaten them 6-5. So that's where their win comes from. So these are 2 teams trying to get themselves on a track, and only one of them will, and good chance that part of that track involves Friday night against each other. And then you have the Guelph Storm, who the London Knights will go and face in Guelph on Saturday afternoon. Guelph so far this year has played 4 games. They're coming off a 7-3 win over the Saginaw Spirit. They lost the night before 7-1 to Oshawa. So, I mean, there's early season stuff in the OHL. Lose 7-1, win 7-3. That's the way it twists around. They have lost 6-2 to Barrie, and they've beaten Erie 5-2. So they come in with a record of 2-2. Dylan Baker, who cut his teeth and earned his chops in this area, is the play-by-play voice on radio for the Guelph Storm. And we sat down with Dylan to talk some Storm. Dylan, welcome to the Ontario Hockey League. Can't wait to see where your career takes you. But you have to take us back to your first road broadcast. You were in Barrie, and you encountered a very early broadcaster's nightmare where the spot that you're supposed to be isn't working for a broadcast. Where did you end up having to go?
Well, first of all, Mike, I want to thank you for all your help that day in getting me ready to broadcast in Barrie. But yeah, the internet wasn't working. I had no connection in my visitor radio broadcast spot, so they ended up moving me to the other side of the press box, standing right next to Colts GM and Vice President Marty Williamson. So I called the first period of that game next to Marty before he eventually moved to another spot in the rink. But when they did the introductions at the beginning of the game, they showed Marty on the Jumbotron. And well, if you show Marty on the Jumbotron, then you're showing me on the Jumbotron. So at the beginning of the game, I just kind of tucked my head into my sheets of paper there and didn't look up as they were introducing Marty Williamson. But he was real nice, and the Colts staff was very accommodating that night as well.
They are, and Marty is fantastic. So, well, glad that the broadcast got to air. Talk to us a little bit about the Storm. Everybody at the beginning of the season, you can look down and go, there's some strange things going on. And the Storm to lose 7-1 one night and then come back and win 7-3 the next day. There's junior hockey in a nutshell, right?
Absolutely. Junior hockey and young teams as well. The Guelph Storm are a very young roster this season, Mike, and it's finding consistency, right? Playing a full 60 minutes night in and night out. And that's kind of been the main topic of conversation with Storm head coach Corey Stillman. He wants his young group to give a full 60-minute effort game in and game out. He thought the first half of the game against Oshawa was really good, despite the fact that they were down and lost big in that game 7-1. They outshot the Generals 49-27 that night, right? So it was a good performance. They just didn't have saves in key moments when they needed them. And then the next night, I think they played their most complete effort of the season up to this point in Saginaw. They looked really, really strong against a high-flying Spirit roster. So it's the duality of the Storm this season where they can look really, really great one night and struggle a little bit the next. But that's what you get with a young team.
That's it. And I mean, the Knights can talk about parts of their game that don't fit into a full 60 so far as well. So these two teams both looking to get on a track, build up that consistency. We'll be watching it happen on both sides as the Knights and the Storm meet up. Talk to us about some of those young players, because there are some exciting guys, maybe one or two that have popped for you so far.
Well, I think everybody's excited about the second overall pick, Jaakko Weisek, and what he's been able to do so far. He's got a pair of goals. He's got an assist in his 4 games played. This is a guy who can make things happen offensively, right? He's not afraid to get to the dirty areas and score goals that way. He's really good off the puck as well for a 16-year-old forward, and I think that the Storm are continuing to challenge him to play again a 60-minute effort. Another young guy that I think of is Carter Stevens, who's in his second season in the OHL this year. He played a little bit last season as a 16-year-old, and he's had a really great start to the year. He's got 5 points in 4 games, had a big night in Saginaw on Saturday. He's played in the top 6 consistently for the Storm in the early going, and I think if they're going to be successful this year, if they're going to return to the playoffs, Carter Stevens is going to have to be a big part of that push.
And then if we look overall, you do have some returning players. Who do you see as kind of the leaders on this team right now?
Well, Charlie Paquette is the captain, right? And I think he's really grown into that role. He spent so much time in this community, in this organization, and he really is the leader of this group. He returned on Friday, obviously a tough loss, but he drove the way on Saturday in Saginaw. And he's not a returning player, a new guy, but a veteran, Ethan Miedema, I think, is also driving a lot of the play right now in terms of the offense and the way that the Storm are playing on the ice. And then on the back end, you look at this leadership group. I mean, it's Paquette as the captain. The 2 assistants are Rowan Top and Quinn Beauchesne. So these are some guys who are a little bit younger than Charlie Paquette. Top is a 2006 born defenseman, and Beauchesne 2007. 2 really talented players and 2 guys who are going to look to drive the play and help lead this team by example, right? Lead in the way that they play, not necessarily maybe in the room, but they are pretty vocal guys as well. So I think that they've got a really strong nucleus of leaders in that leadership group.
Dylan, I'm going to run to the press box right now and make sure for when you are in London, the Knights are in Guelph this Saturday, but for when you are in London, we'll make sure and have everything set up. Put a cheese tray out. We'll have refreshments. We'll get it all set for you.
I look forward to it. Thanks a lot, Mike. I appreciate it.
Dylan Baker, voice of the Guelph Storm. And that leads us to near the end of this episode of The Night Shift. Remember, you can give the London Knights YouTube channel a follow. You can find the audio wherever you do get your shows. And one of the things that we can do before we go is allow you to hear from one more London Knight back from training camp. Alexei Medvedev hanging out with the Vancouver Canucks and being able to get some NHL reps, face some NHL shots. He was facing some NHL shots as a London Knight, just in practice. But he gets to face some NHL shots. Here's Alexei on returning to London. Back from NHL camp, your first one. How fun is it to step on the ice with an NHL team?
Yeah, obviously a really cool experience. Just kind of watching those guys on the TV at first, and then being on the same ice with them is really cool. And it's a lot of learning, a lot of just kind of picking up stuff from them and taking it into the air. So I feel like it'll help me a lot this year.
The one difference you might have is now you're facing some of their shots. Now, you face some pretty hard shots. You've sat there in net while Kasper Halttunen winds up and tees off one-timers. Do you notice much about the shots that you're facing?
Yeah, for sure. They not just hard shots, they're really smart shots too. They kind of read your body language, and they can find those holes, and it's really hard. And I feel like you have to stay really focused when practicing with those guys.
So what does camp look like for a player? What sorts of things do you wind up doing?
It's a lot of skating, practicing, and played a rookie showcase game, so that was really fun playing there in Everett. So I just feel like it's a lot of preparation, recovery, just because it's when you're a little younger, it's a little harder for you. So I feel like just doing that helps a lot too.
You've done a couple weigh-ins and height checks. How tall are you now?
6'3", 185. So.
And so if we went back a couple of years, what were you, about 6 foot?
I was 6 foot, 155 maybe. So yeah.
What's it like to be back here right now?
It was unreal coming back here on Tuesday. I was really happy and just can't wait to get started.
When you look at learning from other goalies, do you get a chance to talk to some of their goaltenders who are in the system?
Yeah, for sure. I had Thatcher Demko and Nikita Talapilo in my group, so they were really, really good to me. And Nikita took me for dinner a few times, kind of got to talk to him, got to learn him off the ice too, and just kind of asking him the questions and learning from him. And it's really nice from him, and really appreciate it, and really, really useful.
And you're in a camp where, I mean, there's guys from Belarus, there's guys from Russia. Is that helpful? You keep the Russians sharp?
Yeah, for sure. It's makes a connection, and just kind of hanging out with those guys, and they're really nice, and yeah, it was great.
You're a guy who loves to meet people. It's just an opportunity to meet a whole lot more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, good luck this year. Thanks, Alexei. London Knights goaltender Alexei Medvedev. Kyle, that brings us to an end of an episode. I can't wait to see what happens this weekend. Knights and Firebirds, Knights and Storm, teams that right now are still trying to find who they are, find that path. And that's who you want to be facing right now.
That is, because I think you're going to get the best out of both teams. I think both want to get off on the right foot to start the weekend off. And it would not shock me if we see London's best games early on in this season this Friday. I will not be shocked.
Well, follow the podcast wherever you find it. We're on the London Knights YouTube channel each and every week. And then you can look for extra podcasts as audio features. And you can find them wherever you find your shows, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. Kyle, enjoy the weekend. Look forward to hearing your voice around Canada Life Place.
Yep, be back at it. Looking forward to it. Puck drop 7 p.m. We'll see you there.